As every TV watcher knows, each year the new season starts around mid-September. So for a weekly series such as Law & Order, the producer, Dick Wolf, must start shooting new episodes the preceding August in order to have new episodes ready by September. Dick Wolf's network must pick up or renew Law & Order sometime in May to give Wolf enough time to lay the groundwork for shooting. The network, from their point of view, will evaluate the show's ratings for the whole season, September to May. If the ratings are good, as with ER, and everyone's happy, the show is renewed. Shows with fair ratings are the most maddening. Many popular shows such as Cheers or even Seinfeld suffered through marginal ratings in the first few seasons before becoming runaway sensations. On Monday, May 7th, 1990, exactly 1 year after being picked up, Grant called me into his office. When I walked in, Stu was standing in a corner staring out the window. I took my usual chair and we exchanged the usual pleasantries. Then Grant came right to the point. I thought you should be the first to know. Baywatch has been canceled. I took a deep breath and tried like hell not to curse out loud. Over the weeks I had been carefully watching the ratings as our episodes aired. It had been medium to fair. I'd also been watching the competition, shows that aired in the same time slot on different networks. We were beating the CBS show Snoops with Tim and Daphne Reed, but losing ground to the ABC shows Full House and Family Ties. I'd also been sensing the less than joyous vibes around Grant, Stu, and Jay. Naturally, they would have had the early word from NBC. I knew the chances for renewal were slim, but that didn't make the news any more easier to take. Of course, I said the usual things. Can't we do something to save the show? But it was over. Finished. As far as Grant Tinker, GTG, Brandon Tartikoff, and NBC were concerned, Baywatch was history. Why was it over? Well, it's more complicated than simply low ratings. The license fee is key. NBC had paid GTG a hefty chunk of money called the license fee for the right to broadcast Baywatch in the United States. So in our case, NBC paid a license fee of $865,000 per episode. So added to this amount was a foreign license fee, which was a modest $75,000 per episode. NBC then sold advertising, bought 15 minutes worth for an hour show to recoup its license fee. So here's the key to TV. The amount of money a network can charge its advertisers is carefully determined by the show's ratings. Advertisers will pay $1 million to have a 30-second commercial on a smash hit like Seinfeld, but for every Seinfeld, 70 other shows are struggling to survive. Baywatch aired for 22 episodes, averaging a 9.6 rating on a Friday night, a number NBC had not achieved since Knight Rider 5 years prior. But NBC had wanted ratings in the 11.0 range, so they could charge their advertisers more money. So Baywatch chances for renewal were diminished, even further thanks to Brandon Tartikoff, head of NBC. He has spent nearly $50 million at developing new one-hour shows for the following 1990 to 91 season. To justify spending all that money, he had to get them on the air. With a limited number of time slots available, it was goodbye Baywatch. It's interesting to note that even if NBC had agreed to renew Baywatch at the same license fee, GTG would themselves have pulled the plug. Baywatch cost nearly $1.3 million per episode to produce. Between NBC and foreign rights, GTG was paid $940,000. So who covers the $360,000 difference? Grant's company, GTG. That's $360,000 per episode times 22, which adds up to $7,920,000. So at the end of the season, GTG was $8 million in the hole, and that assumes we stayed on budget, and sometimes we rarely did. GTG, however, decided it could not afford to lose another $8 million in hopes that Baywatch might eventually be sold into reruns. The only way that GTG could continue making Baywatch was for NBC to pay GTG a higher license fee, an amount that could come closer to covering the actual costs of the show. This was out of the question since NBC wouldn't even renew us at the old license fee. Finally, with everything packed in my car, I left. No need to say goodbye to anybody. The offices were empty. Hasselhoff had already lined up another acting job. Except for my job as a recurrent lifeguard, I was out of work. Daydreaming while driving home is one thing. Actually refloating a canceled network series is quite another. How could I do it? First, I knew I needed enthusiastic, experienced professional assistants. There was only 2 people I knew who had the characteristics that would be needed to pull off such a mammoth challenge. Doug Schwartz and Michael Berg. So as soon as I arrived home, I called Doug and Michael. They had found an overall deal at Reeves Entertainment and were trying to develop new shows. They agreed to leave Reeves and start anew, if we could get it going again. My motivation toward this end was simple. I believed in the show. Their motivation was a little more complicated. Yes, they believed in the show, but they also felt they had been treated unfairly by NBC. In the broadest strokes, I considered the 3 big challenges that we needed to meet. First, we needed to reclaim the rights. Second, we needed a ton of money to produce new episodes. And third, we needed a way to distribute the episodes and market the show. The next day I called Grant and asked for an appointment. As always, he said, "You don't need to make an appointment. Come right over." An hour later, sitting in his office, I said to him, "I don't know exactly what I'm doing or what I'm asking, but I want Baywatch back." Almost as if he knew what I was going to say. He immediately responded, "I just can't give you my part of the show for nothing." My heart started sinking toward the floor as I imagined trying to raise 22 times $400,000. But then Grant said, "You'll have to pay me $10. So of course the first day at business school you learn that something of value cannot be given away. It must be bought, even if only for $1 measly. Next he said, "You'll have to buy back Gannett's portion of the show. So I suggest you meet with Sid Tesler. If that goes well, you should call Paul Talbot." When I returned home, my answering machine was flashing. I had 2 messages, one from Sid Tesler and the other from Paul Talbot. Grant had already spoken to them, and they understood that I wanted to do something with Baywatch. First, I met with Sid Tesler, who had worked with the accounting firm of Brown Craft & Co., located in Brentwood. I knew his name from the GTG NBC year, but I had never spoken to him before. After I explained the situation to him, and Sid agreed to assist me in 2 ways. First, in regaining the rights to Baywatch from Gannett.